Welcome, everybody, to the SmallTown Collectibles YouTube channel. I'm Jimmy Don Kerr. My guest today is a channel that I am fairly new to. I kind of came about this channel through a guy named Brock Morgan, who I've kind of watched and kind of been friends with, since I jumped into the YouTube community. A lot of cool comic book stuff on this channel. I think last night he just had an auction, or the day we're recording this, he had an auction last night. You're going to see comic book hauls. You're going to see comic book mystery box unboxings. I think he's currently in season 2 of building a mystery box. I think we're in episode 9 right now. And then something that I find really, really cool is they've kind of got a group called the Mystery Men, where Foo and his friends, Squatchy and Stevie B, they open Comic Vantage mystery boxes, and they send one to members of the community to kind of come on the channel and open with them, which I think is really cool. His YouTube profile reads as this: I've been collecting comics for 30 plus years and enjoy sharing the hobby with my children and the YouTube, Instagram friends. I focus on comic books, Star Wars, and Funko Pops. So everybody join me in welcoming to 10 Questions, the one and only Comic Foo.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man. Cool. I appreciate you coming on. Like I said, I am fairly new to your channel. Like I've heard your name several times. And you know how it is. You're kind of watching, different content, and Brock and I have kind of known each other. I think we got into it about the same time, and then I think I saw that you had sent DJ Links one of these Comic Vantage boxes. So, and I kind of saw that. So let's just jump right into the questions, Foo. And question 1 is always the same for everybody that comes on, and that is, what or who got you into collecting?
Ooh. I was young. I was real young. Like, some of the memories are so faded at this point. But I do recall I used to go pick up the pizza with my dad in town, and directly across the street was Kenny's newsstand. And so we'd put our order in, and walk across the street, and I would kind of look through the comics there. And I remember Superman was really big for me. There was also a time where I think it was like a friend of my parents or something. They gave me a few books. And when I was little, I had a stack of comics, maybe this tall, right? But I read every one of those comics like religiously over and over. It was, it meant a lot to me. And so then it was probably about, I think the Death of Robin is when I really found an LCS and started to go more regularly. I picked up a pull box around the time of Death of Superman, and that after that point, it kind of went crazy. So
that's cool. I mean, I think I have a similar, I would go to the supermarket with my mom, and they would have like a magazine rack there or whatever, and they would have comic books on it. And, I just remember that really standing out, like the art and those things. So I think that's kind of cool. Did you have the same thing that a lot of us have, I guess, where I kind of collected when I was younger, got out of high school, went to college, I was broke, and I kind of went away from it for a while, and then really didn't get back into it until about 4 or 5 years ago now. My kids are, a little older. It's what I like to say. My kids got older. I'm no longer cool. And I needed something to do. And so I happened to walk into an LCS, and my mind was blown, and, 20 long boxes or short boxes later, here I am. Did you have that same thing?
Absolutely. I think everybody goes through that, around the time where you start hitting about 17 or 18, you're ready to leave high school. I think it's natural that most people they find other interests, right? Their friends and whatnot, school. And so that definitely happened to me. I had a long break in there. But whenever I went to like a mall or something, they would always have a comic shop in the mall, and I would still hop in once in a while. So I still had the interest, just maybe not the time and the motivation at the time, but it was the birth of my son, actually. And so this would have been, I guess, around 2006-ish. I decided, because I had always carried around my 6 short boxes with me. I never let go of those. It was one of the few things I held on to from my childhood. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to pass something on to my kids? And so what I did was I just kind of signed up for every title, both Marvel and DC, through the subscription plan. and they would come in those, really kind of shabby kind of plastic things, not even real cardboard backer on it, right? And I didn't think too much of it, and I put them in a closet, and they just started stacking. Well, my son was probably about 4 years old or so when I realized that this pile was about chest high and I needed to do something about it.
Yeah.
So I had to go through opening. I didn't even open them. So was going through and opening each one. And I think it was the death of Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. And they actually sent me the variant, the limited ratio copy of that book, which was like $75 at the time. And seeing that, it just instantly like got me back in. Getting one win is all it took. And I was like, yes, I'm back. And so from there, it's, 120 short boxes later.
Absolutely, so, man. I know how it goes. And I was going to ask you if you kept your collection from as a child. Like, did you bring it with you? So it sounds like you did. You kept those short boxes, and you still have them today, or have you moved them on since then?
I have every one of them. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I still have the original short box itself. Like, I don't let go of those.
That's awesome. So question 2 is, because I like to read. And so I consider myself a reader who collects, right? I like to buy titles and I like to read, and I've ended up with this massive collection. Are you a reader, or do you just collect?
A bit of both, but if I'm being perfectly honest, I'm more on the collection side. I definitely enjoy reading. All through my teenage years when I was collecting, I read every single book. I loved it. Time's a bit of an issue now, and I just generally when I do read, it's the back issues.
Oh, cool. So yeah, not necessarily reading the modern stuff. It's kind of going back and reading.
Right.
Like, what's your favorite as far as like to go back and read? Maybe from the 90s, or what time frame are you in?
Yeah, I'd say the 80s and 90s, into the 2000s even. Like when I think of books I like to read, I really enjoy going back and reading the old Swamp Thing, Alan Moore. Those are really just kind of hit me at this point in my life. So it changes,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I find myself that too. Now, I like to read a lot of modern stuff. I enjoy, specifically the indie books today. As well as, I have my loves, I think like everybody does. Superman is my guy. He always has been. But like the current Swamp Thing run is phenomenal. I mean, it's so good. And I still read like the Batmans, the Spider-Mans, the Hulks, the ones that I watched as a kid, kind of growing up. I like to go back, but I've been going back and reading like, things that I like Star Wars. Like I've started reading from the 77 run, I've started reading through it. And it's funny because comic books back then were very different than they are now in the way that they were written, because there is a ton of dialogue, right? And there's not near as much today. There's some books that'll have dialogue, but it's as much being told with the art as it is the dialogue itself. And back then it was a lot of dialogue. Do you see that? Like, I know today.
Absolutely.
I can read a comic book in like 7 minutes. If I read one from back then, it takes me like 25.
That's it exactly. Yeah, it's the time difference is amazing. The amount of content that you got back then comparative. But
I find that interesting. I wonder why that's changed so much. Do you think it's just the way that we consume information today? It has to be quicker. That's why they've kind of changed that writing style.
Yeah, I do think so. And I also think that something kind of happened in the 90s. I mean, it may have happened prior to some extent, but in the 90s, we kind of really celebrated the artist, right? And I mean, to the point where these guys were like rock stars almost, right? And so I think part of it is that it shifted as more of a focus on the art. And especially as we've gone into the digital art, we've seen just how expressive it can be. The colors are amazing. And so I feel like, and we see it with the variant covers too, the Virgin covers. So I think that's part of it too, is more emphasis on the artwork and maybe less on the dialogue.
Yeah, no, I think you're probably right. I mean, because really a lot of times, I mean, there'll be books that have, splash pages where there's nothing, no dialogue. Yeah. It's all art, but it tells the story very well as far as kind of tracking what's going on. It's almost like watching a movie in some sense, and reading like subtitles. I don't know. I dig it. I mean, I think it's cool, but I do enjoy going back and reading a lot of those older titles,
Oh
with the
yeah.
dialogue, because there's some great stuff back then.
Yeah, it's an evolution. I mean, if you go back and you read like the Silver Age, I mean, they're silly, right? And
Right.
as you move forward, like you see the evolution happening, and it's interesting. I mean, comic books will always be changing, I think.
Yeah, no, I think so too. All right, so question 3. As far as the way that you either consume comic books or that you buy them, do you have like a favorite way? Like, I know I say on here a lot where we live, it's very rural. Where I'm sitting right now, the closest comic book shop to me is like an hour away.
Hmm.
So, we have to be very creative in how we find things, whether that be antique shops or flea markets or even going online, things like that. Like where you live, like how hard is it to, make purchases and find things? Like what, kind of tell me what you do to buy your books.
So I'm in the just outside of Nashville. So I am very fortunate to have probably about 10 comic stores within an hour's drive of me. So I definitely like hitting up the LCS. Sometimes I'll take like a whole day on the weekend and I do nothing but just go hop to shop, and I really enjoy that. I like seeing the area, different areas of the country and stuff. And so I love and having a comic shop as my destination kind of gives me an excuse, if you will.
Sure.
So I do pick up my books. I've got a pull list at my LCS. I usually go about every 2 weeks. Aside from that, I really enjoy eBay. I know some people don't, but I've very, very rarely have had anything go wrong with eBay. And it's right there when you need it. And it's like, to start a shopping cart.
I like eBay too myself. I mean, as far as I think the ease and the use of the app, what do you think? Like right now, Whatnot's kind of a big thing. A lot of people are doing auctions. I know you did an auction. Like I said, it's when we're recording this, you actually did an auction last night.
Sure.
What do you think about Whatnot, and as far as a resource for comic book sellers and auctions and even buying books?
Right. So this is going to sound funny given that I just did an auction, but for me, I lose the entertainment value in sitting through an auction. So I just don't have the attention span, I guess, oftentimes. So I have tried Whatnot. I'd say it's not for me. Just again, the attention span issue. But that's one thing we try to do with my auction. I try to get a friend on there and we just try to get some banter going so that we don't, we keep it somewhat entertaining. But yeah, I mean, I don't have anything against Whatnot. It's like, I don't think that would be a good venue for me.
I got you. No, yeah, like I said, I've been trying it a little bit. I mean, I think they've got a pretty good thing going there. Like I foresee eBay eventually buying them and adding kind of what they do into that eBay format. Kind of put the eBay spin on it, and that's what I foresee at some point, because it does have a lot of traction right now as far as a lot of people are going there to try to sell books, and you see it a lot here on YouTube. I mean, where people will go on, like you said, it can be boring to sit through an auction as far as depending on what's going on. But when there's a little bit of entertainment to it, it makes it a little more consumable for the average person to sit and watch.
Sure.
Yeah. So question 4 is, like, as far as YouTube is concerned, like, how long have you been on YouTube?
I think it's just over 2 years now.
So what was your motivation to start the YouTube channel? Like, what was the motivation behind it?
My youngest son actually would make videos himself of his collectibles. And he was constantly on my case about, Dad, why don't you make some videos? You've got all this stuff. And I said, that's not me, right? And he kept at me. And eventually I thought, all right, maybe there's something to this. And so I kind of made my first video just showing off a recent haul that I had. And I thought that was okay. And I kind of kept going. And ultimately, it was a mystery box. I opened up a mystery box with a real big book in it. And from there, I was like, yeah, I'm enjoying this. And so it kind of took off from there.
So was it, like, I know for me, I tell the story a lot about it was really a thing. I was trying to prove something to my daughters. And because I've told it on here 1,000 times. So people who watch this every week, I apologize. But it's, it was one of those deals where they were talking about doing a YouTube channel. And then I was like, well, you should do it. And they were like, oh, no, we couldn't do that, and it really bothered me, right? And I was like,
Right.
because I've taught them they can do anything they want to do. You just got to have the guts and be willing to work hard.
Sure.
And finally, I was like, well, fine, I'll do it. I'll show you you can do it. And I fell into this thing, and it, in some sense, I don't want to be like too, exaggerate too much, but in some sense, it's changed my life because I work a lot. I'm very family oriented, and I wasn't doing a ton of stuff for myself. And I kind of fell into this, and I've loved comic books forever. I've loved collectibles, toys, ball cards, you name it. I have a problem. That's what I tell everybody. I have a problem.
We all do.
Yeah. And I fell into this community, and now I love it. Like, I couldn't imagine not doing this, and doing like this show, 10 Questions, and getting to meet different people in the community I wouldn't trade it for anything. I've had an absolute blast doing this. For you, has it been that way? I mean, as far as like when you kind of jumped into it, you kind of got started, and kind of how did the community develop for you?
Yeah. I kind of started out in the live chats of other people's programs, like Just a Rican and His Comics. I love that show. And I started to get to know people that way and realize, wow, this is really a community. I started getting the same people coming back, putting comments on my videos. And ultimately, it caused me to think, because I never put my face on the screen. It was always just my hands in the books. And it got me thinking. I had made some of these connections in the community, and I reached out and said, hey, maybe we should do a show. And so I reached out to my friend Tim, the comic collector, and we were kind of the first ones to do that, and started a show just talking about our love of DC Comics. And it was amazing. I mean, I've made some of the best friends I've got in my life right now here on YouTube in the comic book community. Getting to meet Squatchy and Stevie B with the Mystery Man. I mean, we have fun like 2 nights a week, and it's amazing. I mean, I couldn't go out like with my friends here, 2 nights a week to say, for drinks or something, but here on YouTube we can. So
yeah, and that leads me to question 5 is, the comic book Mystery Man. Like, how did that even begin? Like, how? Because that's a lot of fun. I mean, I think that's a cool idea that you guys do, where you send a box out to somebody in the community as an AOK, and then you invite them on your channel and you open it up. I mean, I just think that's a cool way of kind of, growing the community and getting to know people. So, like, kind of how did that whole thing start?
Well, I mean, that really was the idea to spread the fun, I guess. And so what it started with Squatchy Comics and I. We started with the Comic Vantage mystery boxes on season 1, and we both got an Amazing Spider-Man 361, the first Carnage, right in the same week, and it just kind of like blew us away. And so at that point, we would just buy more boxes, and we would go on streams together and open them. And it was kind of funny because sometimes Squatchy couldn't wait, and he'd open his box first, and it started this whole back and forth competition with us, and we were chasing this one specific Spawn book, and ultimately Squatchy, he did win it, so I have to admit that. But it brought a lot of people together watching us chase that book, and that's when it kind of hit me that, hey, people are enjoying this. I wonder if we could get others to interact with us in a way where they could share the fun and we could kind of grow this thing. And that's where we came up with the idea of we'd pull Chad and Stevie, the 4 of us kind of came together and thought, hey, let's just send out a Comic Vantage box, because if we invite somebody on the channel and require them to come with the box, we had already found that challenging amongst ourselves, just the 4 of us. And so we thought, yeah, let's do this. Well, I mean, it's $40. We'll just send it out to somebody, make their day, and invite them on. And we're just going to have fun and hopefully make more friends. And I mean, it's been amazing, the response. And it's created a great little community.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's cool. Like, I mean, I don't know, like, and there's this thing I have to ask about is, and I don't even know how to say it exactly. It's like this foo glitter or foo dust or something.
Foofetti.
Foofetti, thank you.
Yeah.
Like how did that begin? Like the whole, like as just a joke, like were you just kind of punking one like Squatchy or Stevie B or something?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it came from.
So, right about the time we started the Mystery Men, we decided that we were going to exchange Christmas gifts amongst the four of us. And we had really kind of decided that we were going to target Stevie and really kind of just do something big for him, right? And so we got some books he was really after. Everybody was really focused on that. And meanwhile, I had gotten I think it was a Tales of Suspense or something. It was a very, very old book. And there's this giant Sasquatch on the cover. And of course, Squatchy was all about this book. And I decided I was going to gift it to him. But, you know, I wanted to make a little bit more fun. And so I I printed out pieces of paper with my logo on it and like 100 per page. And I slowly cut each and every one out of multiple pages. And I filled the box with this. When he opened it on camera, I mean, you can see it. It's the funniest thing. He opened it so fast because he was so excited. It was like Christmas morning. And this poof of Foofetti went in his face. And days later, he was talking about, I'm still finding it in the floor of my truck. And, you know, so from there, I decided, you know, you don't want to overdo it. And you got to make sure you're really careful that you don't get somebody that's going to react poorly to it. But every once in a while, I like to send a larger, more valuable AOK to somebody that I feel deserves it. And in those times, I get to have a little fun too, and they get some Foofetti.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's funny. Like I don't know why I find that so amusing, but I do. But there is something about it, you know, almost like the practical joke of it, where you open it up and all of a sudden this just stuff goes everywhere. And
yes.
I don't know. I got a weird sense of humor, I guess, but I think that is hilarious. Like I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Now I want to point out though, I was very careful to use paper, like, you know, like little squares of paper. I didn't want to do glitter, right? Because that gets everywhere. Well, the community here decided that they saw what I was doing and decided that wouldn't it be fun to do it to me? Only they send me the actual glitter. So I have received several glitter packages, and one of them actually did go off in my lap live on the channel. So, but it was fun. I mean, I loved it.
That's awesome. So now I know Brock comes on with you guys now quite a bit. Has the Mystery Man grown, or is it really still just kind of the core four?
Well, actually, so Chad got, you know, busy with other things in his life. The pandemic really affected his employment, I think. And so Chad had to kind of go off and do his own thing for a bit. So it's been Stevie, Squatchy, and I. But what we do is every time we send out a box and invite somebody on the channel, we basically tell them that they are part of the Mystery Men alumni. And what that grants them basically is anytime they want to come back on a Mystery Men show, if they want to bring their own box, or even if they just want to hang out with us, it's an open invite to the alumni. So Brock is one of those members. And so he's taken us up on the offer several times, and we love hanging out with him.
Yeah, Brock's a good dude. Yeah, no, he's one of my favorite people and has been. Like I've just, as far as, you know, kind of go, there's a couple of guys and we call ourselves the usual suspects. Gary B, the casual comic guy, he named us that kind of similar to what you, Squatchy and Stevie B are, you know, as far as it's just guys that I fell into, and we just became fast friends. Like we really did. We get along. We like to cut on each other all the time, give each other a hard time, and it's a whole lot of fun. So I think that's cool. And like I said, as far as what you guys have built from that, I think is great. You know, and then Squatchy does his boxes. Squatchy is so talented. Like you know, I'm going to have to. I've missed his boxes the last 2 times. Just I'm busy. It's hard for me to keep up. But I'm going to grab one of those one day, or I'm just going to have him commission something, because that dude is wicked talented.
Oh yeah.
So question 6 is this, and this is a new question really for 10 questions. As far as I asked it last week was the first time I asked it, but it's something that I'm finding personally, as far as, you know, trying to be, I guess, a YouTuber and, you know, putting out content, is now that things are kind of getting back to normal, somewhat normal. I mean, we still have obviously the Delta variant going on and all those things that are still challenging. But for the most part, things are trying to get back. Like my kids, I feel like we run in every direction. Like, every night, I don't think I got home before 10 o'clock any night this week running with one of my girls for some kind of athletic event, sports, cheer, dance, whatever.
Sure.
So I'm finding it harder to find time to create content when COVID was full blown and everything was kind of shut down. So, there wasn't nothing to do. You just kind of sat at the house and you had time to do these things. Are you finding it more difficult to get time to create content, or does the fact that you go live a couple of times a week really kind of work for you?
Well, yeah, going live definitely helps provide more content, I guess. But I do try to get out at least 3 edited videos a week.
Mm-hmm.
For me, fortunately, even prior to the pandemic, I work from home. So I'm very fortunate in that regard. And so I don't have a commute. I can I've got the flex time basically. So for me, it can be a little bit easier at certain times to produce that content. And, but things always come up in life, work gets hectic, the kids have stuff like you mentioned. So there will be times, like even over the past 2 weeks, where my content has been a little slower in coming out. And, of course I know that hurts the algorithm, but hey, life happens. So.
Right. Well, you can only do what you can do. And
Yeah.
that's what, I talk about it a lot. I never want it to, it is work. I tell people all the time, they're like, oh, you're having fun. I said, yeah, I am having fun. I said, it's a labor of love, but it is work for sure.
Absolutely.
Making the time to record, then you got to edit, and then, then get it uploaded, prepare descriptions. There's quite a bit of time that goes into it. And I said, I've just found recently that I'm having to change my schedule up somewhat in the way that I record. I'm having to record at my office. There's one segment I do every week, first appearances and key issues for New Comic Book Day. This is one of the, most watched videos that I put out. So I feel like I do need to get it out. And there's a lot of research that goes into that, to get that done. And then I'm literally having to sit in my office, my business, and record it so that I can get it out.
Yeah. One of the more challenging things I find in terms of actually recording the content is I do the mystery box unboxings. And from the very beginning, I felt in order to keep it honest, I had to show the full unboxing, and I didn't want I wanted everybody to actually see me pull the books out of the box. Well, that also takes a while, and who wants to sit through somebody unboxing? So I'll fast forward that and whatnot. But that also means that I've got to get it in one take. Like I don't have any redos on that because I'm opening a box that I can't reopen. And so I do have to reserve time for those. I have to make sure, everybody in the house knows that I'm filming at the time because, if it's another type of video, I can just reset it. But with those, you're going to see whatever happens. So.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's just something that is really, of late, and I hadn't ran into that before. It's as much about, I've always worked a lot, so I'd always kind of built that into my schedule, and I do a lot of things on Saturday morning, which is when we're recording this. I have to do a lot of stuff on Saturdays. But yeah, since, it's kind of kicked back in, the kids back in school, sports are wide open right now. I have 2 girls, 2 years apart, and literally, Amy's gone right now. I've got one gone to a soccer game. I'm going to the Kentucky football game today. So nice. Once I get done with this, I'll be leaving here and going to Lexington to do that. So yeah, I've been asking people that because I find it interesting. I know a lot of YouTube channels sprung from COVID. People were looking for something to do, couldn't get out, so you were looking for something to do. And so I was just wondering how that's changed. So question 7 is, I want to talk about, you've had a channel for a couple of years. And kind of the evolution of your channel. I find it interesting how channels ebb and flow. I know my channel's changed a great deal since I started. At first when I started, I was doing all mystery boxes all the time. I was not just doing comic book mystery boxes. I was doing BAM boxes and Zombie boxes and really just anything, Loot Crate, whatever I could find.
Right.
And I was opening them. Well, that gets expensive. Number 1. And then 2, you're reselling a lot of that stuff. It just creates work. So as time's gone on, I've changed my content to things that really kind of suit my personality. So I was just wondering how your channel has evolved. You said, you obviously started, you weren't on screen at all. Talk about how it's evolved, and then how your content, like kind of give me a timeline of how your content's changed.
Sure. So yeah, it has definitely changed over time. Definitely just streaming, going live is a big change. I started the channel out. In fact, I went on Just a Rican and his comics channel, and I remember he asked me like what the purpose of my channel was. And the purpose of my channel, as I stated, was basic from the very beginning here, is it's just meant to catalog my collecting journey. And if you want to take a part in that journey, great, you know, otherwise it's there for my kids one day, maybe. And so I started out with my comic finds video, just showing what books I was finding each week. And then also my unboxing videos, which started as like just opening up like my eBay purchases and stuff, but it did start to morph into more of specifically mystery boxes, which is where it is today. So my comic finds videos and my unboxing videos are the two main like staples of the channel, I'd say. Obviously the Mystery Men and then the Fanboys on the Retro Review, which is our DC show. I started picking those up. In terms of what changed, I'd say probably most would be the way I've allowed my personality to come through the camera more. I think I held back more. I'm shy naturally until you get to know me, as Squatchy knows, and then it's a little different. But so I've tried to relax a bit, let more of my personality come out. But at the same time, I have to say especially like maybe about 6 months or so ago, I made a conscious decision to make sure that I wasn't letting it get away from me, and that I was always returning back to my original purpose for starting the channel, because I've had a lot of success with the channel. In my opinion, it's been fun for me. And so something that I did, I felt must have been right. And so I try to remind myself of that and keep always trying to pull back to where it started. You'll never get it exactly, but that's kind of been my approach to things. So
cool.
I really tried to go for consistency.
So that was one of the things and this will kind of just be a follow-up, is you have had success. I mean, you've been there a couple of years. I think you're 2.4, thousand subscribers, roughly.
I think I'm 3 away from 2,500.
Awesome, man. And
yeah.
So, and as someone who just recently hit 1,000 subs himself, for me, I feel like my success has been the consistency. Like I work at it. I'm consistent with my content. I try not to let my content be stale. Like if I really look at the analytics, like but that's my nature. That's what I do as a job. I study numbers all the time and analytics. So I really pay attention to what's working and what doesn't. If it's not working, I'm not married to it and I go on. Like, what do you attribute your success to? Like, is there anything, like if you were given like an aspiring YouTuber who was trying to get to 1,000 subs and you said, look, do this, what piece of advice would you give them?
Well, I'd first give some caution, and at least doing it the way I've done it, it is very expensive. But the consistency, you're spot on with that. It affects the algorithm quite a bit in terms of how YouTube will show, how often they show your video to others. Obviously, the thumbnail is important, although I don't think my thumbnails have ever been that great. I'm not willing to put my face out there, as I think, which attracts a lot of people. But what do I attribute to my success? Yeah, I mean, I think just continually coming out with new videos each week that people can look forward to. I think the Mystery Men definitely helped. But you know what? Honestly, nothing goes over better on YouTube than a room tour video. If you want to get subs, that's I stumbled into it. I didn't mean to do it, but now it's become like a once a year video, and they are always the most popular by far, by thousands of views.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh wow.
My average video will get anywhere from 200 to 500 views. I can do a room tour and I'll hit, maybe 10,000.
Interesting.
It's crazy.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, note to self: room tour.
There you go.
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, no, that's cool. But I mean, there's truth to that though, because I watch a lot of room tours. You're interested, and I'm not a person that necessarily likes to show off what I have. Like, I'm not. That's not necessarily who I am. So that's
Yep.
why you see a lot of my content's more informational. In what it does, it's informing, because at the core, I think that's what YouTube is. It's entertainment in one sense, but at the core, it's informational, and that kind of suits my personality a little more. But I do watch a lot of room tours. That makes sense, you
Yep.
know. Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. No, that's cool. But no, I think you're right. And that's something I think everybody searches for, that kind of starts out, like, and I think, everybody kind of has a similar story where you're like, okay, look, if I hit 100 subs, I'll feel like I'm doing good.
Oh yeah, that 100 sub mark was the biggest moment for me. Like way bigger than 1,000.
Yeah, like, I don't know, I got 100 subs. I was like, wow, okay, wow, I got 100 subs. All right, maybe I can do this. And then, from there, I just kind of kept doing it. And then I end up making friends in the community. I'd go on shows. Like, I went on Spine Ticks the other night, and helped pick up like 25 more subs, like, just because those guys are awesome. Yeah, it's just, I think it's consistency, and I really do. But like I said, for me, it's about analytics, just because that's what I understand.
Sure.
I understand it, so I can see what's working and what doesn't. But no, you really have. I mean, for a couple of years to be where you're at, I think that's great, and I think it means you are doing something right. And the three of you guys, especially you, Squatchy, and Stevie B, when you're together, there's a lot of charisma there, a lot of chemistry. And so if anybody's watching this, you've never checked out, Mystery Man. It's cool. I think it's a lot of fun. You can tell they're just three dudes that love comic books, that like hanging out with each other, and that really kind of comes through the screen. So I think that's cool.
Yeah.
So question 8, and as I drop my pen, question 8 is, I want to talk a little bit about how your family plays into this. I know, in your description on your YouTube page, it talks about sharing it with your kids. Um, like, do you find, like, my wife could care less about any of this, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know that she's ever watched one of these videos. I don't know that she's ever watched 10 questions. It's just not her thing.
Yep.
Now, she supports me. She doesn't care what I do. She'll go to the movies with me and watch them. She'll watch the TV shows with me. That's fine. But like, how has it been for you in the YouTube journey and the collecting journey as far as your family is concerned?
Well, my wife's similar. She doesn't get involved too much with it, but certainly supports it. I say that, but she also is a collector, just on a much smaller scale. So that's kind of how she gets involved. With my kids, they all have their own collections too. They've got my one son's Lord of the Rings. My other son's got a huge Five Nights at Freddy's collection.
Oh,
And
wow.
so they get involved in their own ways. They go to the conventions with me. They go to the LCS with me. And sometimes they get bored, to be honest, because they're like, oh, dad's going to be there forever flipping through the books. It's like, well,
Yeah.
but, but overall, I think it's really kind of provided some nice just time for us. Where otherwise we probably would have all been sitting here watching other people's YouTube videos or something like that, right? Just doing our own thing, playing video games or something. It gives us a time to get out of the house together, talk about what's going on in each other's lives. And then, we go to the store, we get to buy ourselves a little treat and, come back, and it's all we needed. So
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, your kids, like, when I first started doing this, my kids were so embarrassed. Like, legit, like, they were like, I cannot believe dad started a YouTube channel. Because I'd tell all their friends when they would come in, I'm like, hey, I got a YouTube channel. Go sub me up, watch my content. And they were like, Dad, shut up. And, but now it's different. Now they're like, hey, maybe we could come on.
Right.
Maybe we could do this. And I said, because my youngest daughter, she's really into music, loves music. And I'm not talking about like today's music. She likes old music. Like, it blows my mind, the songs that she plays for me sometimes. So she's gotten into vinyl.
Nice.
And she wants to buy vinyl records. So and I've recorded some of it. Nothing yet that I feel like I want her to be just a little bit older, but I've recorded some of it just for me, that I have stored on my YouTube channel, where we have gone out and kind of hunted records together. I picked up a few comic books while we've been out. it's cool because my oldest daughter she's not into it. My wife's not a collector at all, but there is something about when you have what we have, the love for it, and
Mhm.
the love for collecting, when you can share that with your child, there is something very special about that, and it's a good way to spend time together. And
Yeah.
it's not talking about school or talking about important things necessarily. You're just together,
Yeah.
and and talking music and stuff. I love it.
Yeah, I actually have two videos. They are unlisted, which means you can still find them. They're just not going to show up anywhere. You would have to go back to the very, very beginning of my catalog, but there are two videos that do feature two of my sons. I have three sons. And because I had an idea in my head very similar where I wanted to get them involved in some way, not on camera, but I did one where I actually let my son show off his G1 Transformers collection. And my other son, we did a whole video on John Carter and discovering John Carter and talking about who he was or what the story was about, the different types of media he appeared in. And in that video, I actually gifted my son, he was not expecting it, the original first printing of the novel, which is like, I don't know,
Oh,
from like
wow.
1918 or something. It's very
Yeah.
old. And so I thought it was a cool video. I thought it would be kind of a neat thing to do with the kids moving forward. But then YouTube kind of changed their rules around with children. And so I kind of rethought that, and I decided to unlist the videos just out of an abundance of caution. So.
Yeah, no, I filmed them, and she's not necessarily down. She's funny. She doesn't care if it snows oats. I mean, like, she's a little bit nuts. That's what I tell her all the time. But she's kind of backward in a way, and she doesn't necessarily want to be on. And so, but I did it for myself, and I like what you said. It's really about documenting your journey, is
Yeah.
what it started as, and that's become that for me too. Is it's a way to have a place where all this stuff that I've been doing, and I just store it there, and I can watch it when I want to, and I watch it from time to time. So
Yeah.
no, I think that's cool. So I do have a question when it comes to your kids' toys, because I think about myself as a kid, and I grew up when Star Wars came out. Like, I was in '77, I think it was, when the first one came out. I was 2 or 3 years old.
Mhm.
And then, so really, Empire Strikes Back and Return of Jedi is where my,
Yep.
really the love for it came. So, toys wise, I have all the toys. Like, I got them all. I used to get them all for Christmas. I've got them all. But I played with those things. I mean, like you wouldn't believe. I mean, I have most of them, still have them. I think back now, and I'm like, whew, if I'd have kept those in their boxes, that'd have been worth some money. Like, do you have that? Like, when you're looking at your kids, do they get them out and play with them, or do they keep them in their boxes?
Both. So the other half of my collection, aside from comics, are action figures, and I collect them mint on card. So I'm the same way. And the reason I collect the mint on card is because my Star Wars collection as a kid, when I went to college, my mother gave to Goodwill, and I lost all of it. So that kind of stuck with me. And so now I don't open them. So that has spilled over to the kids somewhat. Like, my son will not open his Lord of the Rings collection. And Funko Pops, we don't take out of the box. Having said that, my younger son especially still wanted to play with the toys, and I am not going to tell him he can't open his toy and play with it. So he is more inclined to open them up. But it really depends. So they've got some of both going on.
So, like, do you find, like, okay, so my girls were really into these things called Monster High dolls.
Okay.
And those, they were, especially the very first, because they were in on it early. Like, they were watching the movies that came out with the thing. So the early versions of that doll at some point will be valuable because they didn't make a ton of them.
Right.
And so I still have all the boxes. Like, when I'd open them, I was very careful about how I opened the box, no tear. And they were like, "Would you please open it? I want to play." And I was like, "Hang on, someday you'll thank me for this." And so I've got all the boxes. They're bubble wrapped upstairs in the attic, in totes. And then, as the years have gone on, we went back put them back together, kind of got them back in their original format, and then stored them back in the boxes because I think it's someday. Do you find yourself doing that, or am I the only crazy person?
No, I have. Where I've saved the boxes, but I have to admit there did come a point, especially during a move, where it was like, okay, this is a little crazy, and we did get rid of the boxes. So
yeah, no, I think I'm like, my wife says, "You're a nut," and I said, "No, I'm telling you." I said, "If I'd still had these Star Wars boxes, this would be worth some real money."
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah,
no,
we have enough things still unopened here that I felt comfortable enough getting rid of a few. But yeah,
that's hilarious. Like I know I can go up in the hills here. Like when we were kids, like especially with Star Wars, GI Joe. Like was it Empire Strikes Back where it starts out and it's the winter scene?
Yeah.
Okay. So when it would snow here, we would go up in the hills. We always stayed in the hills as kids. Like we were the kids, that generation where 8 o'clock, your mom kicked you out the door.
Yeah.
In the summer, go play, be back, when it gets dark.
Yep.
And we could come and get lunch or whatever, and then we'd go play. Well, anyway, it'd snow. We would go up in the hills, and we would take like the winter stuff, like the AT-AT walkers, the whole thing from that scene, and I know that I can walk up in these hills, and somewhere there are G.I. Joes and Star Wars figures buried up there in the woods somewhere. I know it.
Right.
Because and that is one of the things too, though, like toys back then, we didn't have social media. We didn't have all the movies and the access to TV and things. So you played with your toys.
Yeah.
And today it's a little different because they have other things to kind of occupy their mind. You agree with that?
Absolutely. The video games changed everything in terms of play habits with kids. And so, yeah, I mean, I've struggled at times, especially when they were younger. Like I tried getting them into G.I. Joe. I'm like, how is this not entertaining for you? And it's what I've learned is you got to let them find their own path and do their own thing. Because if you try to force it as a parent, even though you love it, they're going to like have the opposite reaction.
Yeah. They'll hate it. You're right.
So kind of make it accessible and provide it. And then see kind of where they go with it. And it leads in interesting ways paths that you wouldn't have expected, Yeah.
And when there's things that they watch on TV that they end up collecting, like you said, Lord of the Rings and things like that you end up with that we didn't necessarily have during our day.
Yeah. Now, once they target in on something though, then that's where I get involved because then it's just like something else to collect, whether I care about it. Like now I'm just after the completing. So like, I don't know much all about Five Nights at Freddy's, but there is a closet in the next room over that is floor to ceiling.
Well, that's what I'm talking about with the Monster High dolls is I was into finding those things, like the hard to find, whatever.
Fun.
The collector in me came out and I started, I would. And like you said, the completionist in me, the whole thing, like it was fun. So I want to get to question 9 here because it kind of goes with what we're talking about. And you had mentioned that the question is do you collect anything else or is it just comics? So it sounds like you collect toys. And talk about the kinds like the figures that you collect, mint in the box, Funko Pops, things like that. What are the other things that kind of dominate your collection?
Okay. So my LCS for many years used to be right across the street in Everett, Washington from the Funko headquarters. So I have an enormous Funko collection. I probably have about 500 of them.
Oh, wow.
And I know there's some people that have much larger, right? But so Funko is a large part of the collection and specifically Star Wars. I have a huge Star Wars collection. I collect the Black Series. I've been collecting that since it first came out. The Vintage collection, I really enjoy those. And then the Pops. The problem with Star Wars, though, is there is just so much.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of regret getting into the Pops almost because I am a completionist and I didn't fully anticipate what I was getting into at the time. But aside from the Pops, I mentioned the Star Wars action figures, the Vintage and Black Series is what I collect. Aside from that, I have a very, very large, kind of an unusual collection. It's all Green Lantern action figures in box. So when I got back into collecting, I decided, if I'm going to do this, I need a character that I'm really going to focus on. And I had always been really interested in Green Lantern. And so I decided to complete that. That was the run I was going to focus on. And I've spent many, many years collecting that. and it kind of grew into the action figures. And at some point, I think it was my kids. They brought one of those Guinness World Record books to me, and they said, "Dad, look at this." And they showed me the guy that had the X-Men collection, the Guinness World Record for that. And then I started looking more into it, and I saw there's a Superman one and a Batman one, but there's not a Green Lantern one.
Nice.
And I am off to a really good start. So I've said several times on my channel, I've got a whole playlist showing the Green Lantern collection. It's my goal by the end of the year, and I keep putting it off, but I want to get it all cataloged and submitted to Guinness for the Green Lantern. So
I love it, man. That's awesome.
It may not work, but it can't hurt to try. It's a goal.
Right. Why not? No, I mean, no, I think that's awesome. Like, I think that's fun, something to shoot for, something to do, right? You're collecting it anyway. Why not? Why not be in the Guinness Book of World Records? I think
it's silly, great. But yeah.
No, I think
so I've got
awesome.
A whole wall over there that has nothing but Green Lantern.
That's cool.
It's crazy.
No, like I've thought about that too. Like I do a lot of trading cards. Anybody that watches this knows that. I'm obviously a Kentucky fan. You're in Tennessee. So are you a sports fan at all?
Not so much anymore, to be honest.
Okay, I don't have to hate you then. That's okay. Where you live in Tennessee, it's fine. No, I'm
okay.
No, I collect a lot. Like growing up, that's really what kind of started I had an uncle that sold at flea markets and things like that. And he sold a lot of trading cards. And so I was kind of into that. And like I said, I got a problem. So I had to hone my trading card collection down to, I just collect Kentucky players, once, they in their uniform, there's a set that comes out in the uniform. And then there's, their rookie cards when they go into the league. And that's what I kind of collect trading card wise. I have a few Funko Pops, primarily music because I'm into music, and I have Metallica, their pops, and then I have I've gotten some autograph pops. Like I find that interesting, but that's also very expensive. And so I've tried not to go down the Funko Pop rabbit hole, but where I'm really struggling not to go right now is like He-Man, because I don't have any of my He-Man stuff. I love He-Man, and so I've been looking at a lot of He-Man stuff on eBay. And then I have a lot of the Star Wars. Yeah, it is. And I have a lot of the Star Wars. I have a lot of the G.I. Joe stuff that I had as a kid. And I've gotten into like putting the G.I. Joes back together, like where they break, like getting the things and cleaning them up good, putting them back together and displaying them. So I think that's fun. So no, everybody usually, it's not just comic books. Like there's generally something that kind of comes along with it. Because like I said, we're addicts. We have problems when it comes to collecting.
Well, and I actually recommend to people that they do have at least more than one thing that they collect. And the reason they say that, and maybe it's just me, but I have seen it with other collectors. So I tell people often, it's important, I think, to have more than one collection or thing that you collect, because as your interest kind of ebbs and flows, it gives you something else to go after, right? So like there are times where I can just overdo the comics, and it kind of exhausts me a bit. And having something to fall back on, like action figures, has been very helpful, because ultimately what it does is it refreshes my love for the comics again, and then I can come back, and it's just like an endless cycle. So it's definitely helpful to have more than one thing that you collect. So so you always have something to come back to, I guess.
No, and I think you're spot on, because sometimes, you go so hard into one thing, you kind of burn out a little bit. And then, because that happens to me all the time. Like right now, I've not been buying as many comic books. I have most of what I want for the most part. And so, but I've got this interest peaked with the He-Man, with the series that came out on Netflix. And so I've been really looking at those. I haven't pulled the trigger on anything major yet. I've really just been kind of watching it, watching prices, watching auctions and things like that. That's the one thing I have the ability to do, is I'm very patient when it comes to buying things. I don't have to, like the FOMO, like the fear of missing out. I think there's places where I have that, but for the most part, I can be pretty patient and kind of watch things. And that's kind of where I'm at right now with all that. So no, but I think that's awesome. And I think that's really well said as far as, how collecting goes and having the different interests. So I love that. All right. So question 10, last question, something easy. Do you have any particular grails, whether that be a toy or a comic book or anything else that you're chasing right now? Like I know I make a list at the beginning of every year. I want to try to pick up these certain books. Do you have anything you're chasing right now?
Yeah. So I do the same thing. I actually did a whole series of videos right at the turn of the year with some others in the community talking about collecting goals for 2021. And I finished it with my goals. I think I've achieved most of the goals that I had for this year so far. I really wanted to finish up my Green Lantern run, and which all I needed was the first appearance of Sinestro, and I did get that earlier in the year. And then let's see, I picked up a Constantine, and there's some other books, but the one book that I did say was going to be kind of a stretch goal for me and that I was really looking forward to is an ASM 50. And that's probably the next book really on my list.
Cool,
So,
cool. Well, it's good to hear a fellow DC fan because there's a whole lot of DC hate out there. It seems like there's a lot of Marvel people.
yeah.
I grew up loving DC, like well, which I
Yeah.
didn't really, TV wise, I got to watch Super Friends, and that was about it, really. That as far as what I got to watch. So I've always loved DC, always loved Superman, and still to this day, I am more attracted to the DC content. And I'll be honest with you, right now, the DC writing is better than Marvel.
Yeah.
And it just is. I mean, there's great titles coming out of DC right now, and I think they're exceeding Marvel in every way when it comes to that. That's just my personal opinion, But
I love DC. Yeah.
yeah, no, I do too. And really, there's a lot of good keys out there of DC that are undervalued.
There
Um,
really are.
yeah, and I think that you better jump on them now. Because once HBO Max gets a hold of DC and does what HBO does,
Yeah.
because their content is phenomenal. What they put out is phenomenal.
Yep.
And once they get a hold of DC, like Titans, you can already see it in that new Titan season. Like
Oh,
it
it's
is,
good.
oh my
It's
God, it's
good.
so good. It's a whole other level,
Yeah.
than what was on CW. I mean, it's a whole other level. Like it's just great. So I think you better get on, especially in you as a Green Lantern fan. That's really one of the next big projects they do.
Oh, I
I think
know.
that's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. That's 10 questions. We've got through 10 questions. As I like to say, 10 questions. That was really 30, but 30 questions is not a good name for a show. So 10 questions it is. So I will put all Foo stuff down in the description below so that you can go find him. I know you can find him on IG, of course, YouTube. Got some great content over there coming out almost daily. And you can watch the Comic Book Men with Squatchy and Stevie B and those guys. All fun guys to watch and great members of this community. And I got to say, Foo, like I said, I'm fairly new to you, okay? Like as far as like really finding you, but I found your content pretty interesting and I was like, okay, I want to talk to this guy. I'd like to get to know him a little better. I think you've picked up a more consistent fan here because I dig your vibe and I dig why you're doing it and the whole thing that you're doing. And I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me today.
Well, I appreciate this. Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity. This has been fun. I love
Yeah,
talking
man.
comics. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I've had a blast today. All right, so like I said, everything for Foo will be down in the description below. Go sub him up if you haven't subbed him up already. Go check out his content. It's a lot of fun. Go follow him on IG. Send him a DM and tell him you found him on 10 Questions and just harass him if you really want to. I don't know. He seems like a nice guy.
Don't send glitter. Don't send glitter.
Don't send glitter. Don't do that. Like if you'll take the time like he will to actually cut up paper, I'm good with that. So yeah. Yeah, and last thing, of course, we hit our 1,000 sub goal. We're going to have that 1,000 subscriber giveaway very, very soon. Make sure you stay tuned or pay attention for when that's going to happen. Still have the code with Street Level Hero LA, where you can go over there get 10% off your order with the code STC10. But most importantly, you're going to raise some money for a great cause, the American Cancer Society. So definitely go check that out. Some dope covers coming out over there, T-shirts, all that stuff, and get your discount code and raise some money for a great cause. All right. This has been the Comic Foo, and this has been 10 Questions.